wise guitarist once told me that if you have a weak picking hand, then you suck. And the guitarist that told me this was not a metal guitarist. He played acoustic. He played like cover old rock, like blues and classic rock songs on his acoustic. So as far as like metal goes, I think that's even more important. I think that statement is even more true when it comes to metal guitar because of how fast and how crazy a lot of these metal riffs are. Most of the riffs that you want to play are going to require a pretty heavy and fast and accurate picking hand. So it's beneficial to you. It's almost essential that you focus on your right hand and the right hand picking techniques in the beginning. First thing, before you do anything else, that should be your number one focus, is developing your right hand. What I've noticed over the past 20 years of metal guitar and riffing experience, and what I've heard and noticed from a lot of my students over the past couple years, is that practicing and learning is much more effective if you have something that you're working towards. And so what I mean by that is I could give you guys just like right hand technique exercises that I come up with that would work wonderfully. But the problem is that people generally get bored of these very quickly. So they're not effective if you don't practice them enough to make them effective. It's almost like a diet. It's like there's a wonderful, amazing diet that would get everybody in absolutely ripped shape. But if it's not something that you're going to stick to, then what's the point? So instead, what I like to do is I like to take specific riffs, and then I break them down into sections, and I teach you them in sections, and essentially put together several exercises that are like steps to work up to where you can play this riff. So I have some pretty awesome riffs for you guys today, and that's exactly what we're going to do in this video. So I'll explain these riffs, I'll explain all the steps leading up to the riffs, the exercises and stuff, but I'm not really going to play through them very long, and I'm not going to have any tabs for you. But if you guys want the tabs and you want the playthrough videos for all the exercises and all these riffs that I show you in this video, I link that below. You can access that and then just open it up and then watch it and open the tabs and go through the process and learn these riffs. The first riff that I have for you guys is what a lot of people would consider the GOAT of galloping riffs out there. Every time I post a video or post something about galloping, or I play and explain a galloping style riff, I always get comments of people saying Raining Blood Slayer is the number one riff that you should learn if you want to improve in gallops. And I think that there's some truth to that. It's not my favorite galloping riff, but I do like it, and it is going to help you out. And the way that I'm going to explain this and teach you guys with the several different steps, it is going to teach you guys how to gallop very, very effectively and very efficiently. And you're going to be able to play this riff. And depending on your level of galloping right now, you're going to have to be able to gallop pretty efficiently. So it might take you a little bit longer to learn this riff. But if you go through the steps that I show you, it's not going to be more than a couple weeks or so, depending on your level of guitar playing at this moment. So the first one is Raining Blood by Slayer. This song is an E flat tuning, which is basically just a half step down with all the strings, just a half step tuned down. So if you're not sure what that tuning is, just go look up E flat tuning and then use your tuner, but you essentially just have to lower each string by just a half step. So simple, very simple, easy to do. The first step and the first exercise to get us to where we're going to be able to play this riff all the way through at that tempo of 176, I believe is what it was. Yeah, 176 is going to be the double gallop. And in my opinion, this is like the number one exercise that you can do to improve your gallops. It's not a very interesting one because it's very straightforward and basic. It's just 2 single gallops, just like this, with a rest. But it's going to improve your galloping so much. So a couple tips on galloping. You definitely want to palm mute. You're going to palm mute. Any metal gallop that you hear is going to be palm muted. And having a down angle on your pick is going to help to where you're not going to have as much friction between the pick and the strings. So ultimately, it's kind of going to flow a little bit better. Your pick's going to glide through that string, but still get you that heavy sound and still pick it enough to make it sound good. So having somewhat of a down angle is going to definitely help you out with being able to play these as fast as we need to play them. And then also having a relaxed hand. So a relaxed hand, relaxation overall is going to be essential when playing anything fast, playing really anything at all. But having a very relaxed wrist to where you're essentially just kind of flopping your wrist around and flopping your hand around in a sense. That might be an exaggeration, but that's kind of what it feels like when you get into that mode of just consistent gallops. As far as the picking pattern, down, up, down, and then rest, but always start on that down stroke. So you're going to have basically 2 down strokes and then 1 upstroke for every gallop is the most effective way that I've found to play the gallop, and I think it's generally how people are able to play them fast. If you down pick all of the notes on the gallop, you're not going to be able to play it nearly as fast. Alternate picking, you could play it as fast, but it's going to have a different sound because you're going to start with that up pick on the first note every other time, which is going to change the sound of the gallop. So always starting on that downstroke, I think, is the best way to do it. So step 1 is just to practice that double gallop. So step 2, we're going to double up on that. We're going to just do a quad gallop. We're going to do 4 gallops in a row. And a big part of being able to play consistent gallops this fast for long periods of time, which you're going to have to with this riff, because I think it probably goes like 4 times through each time before it switches to the next riff, which that's a lot of gallops. There's 12 gallops in this entire riff before we play the end lick part. So that's like, 48 gallops that you got to play without really having much of a rest. So it's about building up stamina. Step 2 is just the quad gallop. Rest. And you could rest however long you want. I think in the tab for the exercise that I have that you can download, I think I have it to where it just, you play a measure of gallops and then you rest. So if you're playing to a metronome, which I suggest that you practice these gallops to a metronome because you're going to want to play them in time eventually. And 1 gallop is going to take 1 beat on a metronome, and it's going to be a 4/4 time signature, which basically means that there's going to be 4 beats in each measure, and there's going to be 1 gallop for each beat. So step 3 is just to play all the gallops in a row, which is there's 12 gallops. So each of these steps, it's pretty important that you're consistent with each of these ideas and each of these steps. So if you're struggling with 4 gallops and then resting and then 4 and then rest and then 4 and rest, if you're struggling with doing that for several times in a row, then you're probably not ready to play the 12 gallops in a row. But once you get to that point, just up it to where you're playing all 12 of those gallops. So step 3 is just all 12 gallops in a row. So the last step number 4, before we play the entire riff all the way through, is to learn the tail lick that comes right after the 12 gallops, which is basically open E, 2/4 on the E, 4 on the A, 3/2 on the D, and then 3/2 on the A. And then you're just going to practice that a few times with a rest in between. And when I play this, I'm play the 2, 4, and then I roll my ring finger down to the A. And it's kind of hard for me because I have small fingers, so I don't have a lot to like grab both of those strings there. So it's almost easier for me to go 4 on the E and then use my pinky on the A, but it seems to be a little bit hard. So you can decide maybe one of those ways easier for you. The second riff here is from the band Trivium. It's the song, the first riff, the main riff from the song Like Light to the Flies, which it's a very good, just kind of basic like warm up down picking riff, and that I believe I heard the band actually talk about how that's kind of where the riff came from. Is they just used it as a warm up, and then they kind of polished it up and made it like this riff. And I believe this was a song that got Trivium signed to their first record label. It's a pretty fun one to play, and it's a very good one for developing your down picking between the bottom two strings. I picked this riff because it's going to help you with down picking, but to be honest with you, I don't really ever play this riff this way. I up pick all these A string notes because I have a strong enough up pick, and I can make it sound to me just as good as down picking. So there's kind of been like the whole down picking crave, and over the period of time, to where a lot of people think that down picking is like the best way to go, or they think that James Hetfield from Metallica only down picks everything, which is completely false. And I think it started out that way, but to be honest with you, and if you're one of these people, I apologize if I offend you, but I think that it's more of the idea of like, who are you trying to convince? Alternate picking takes time to learn. It's not easy. It's not as easy as down picking until you get it figured out, and then it becomes easier. But it's something that you have to take time to learn. So I think that it's more of people that just don't want to learn how to alternate pick kind of use that as an excuse, like you need to down pick everything in metal, otherwise it's not metal, it's not right, it doesn't sound good. I think that's false. I think that there are times when you can incorporate an up pick and make the riff sound just as good as all down picking, and this is a good example versus the down picking right here. To me, it sounds the same. I don't know. Maybe it sounds different to you. Let me know if you think that it sounds completely crappy with the up pick in the comments if you want. Anyways, I would suggest that you guys practice this down picking because it is going to help your down picking, and it is a good idea to be able to down pick fast, especially a riff like this, which was written down picked. I believe Matt Hafey down picks this riff, and that's the way that he wrote it. But that doesn't mean that's the way you have to do it. But I would always suggest that if you're going to do something a different way, at least understand how to do it the right way and then decide, I want to do it a different way. To me, it's more effective and more efficient if I'm up picking these notes on the A, because then I'm already on my way back to that string that I need to get to, and then I just down pick these palm muted notes, and those sound as good, and personally I think the riff sounds just fine if I up pick those. It doesn't look as cool. It doesn't look like I'm going as crazy with my right hand, but it sounds just fine, and I'm not using nearly as much energy to play the same exact riff. Step one to learning this riff is we're just going to learn the melody. We're not going to worry about any of these bass notes right now. So it goes 10, 8, 7, 5, 7, 8, 10, 8, 7, 12, 10, 8, and then 10, 8, 7, 5, 10, 8 again, and then there's an octave tail, which we'll talk about here in a second, but that would be the first step, is just to get that melody down. And I suggest that you use positions here. So see how I'm using my fourth finger, second finger, first finger, and then I can jump over and use my fourth finger, third finger, first finger, and then I can jump over here and use like a stretched out 1, 2, 3 fingers. That I would say is the most effective way. And ultimately when you're playing guitar and you're playing riffs, like you want it to be as easy as possible. So anything that you can do to conserve energy and make it easier is going to be beneficial to you. So instead of sliding like this, that's not as effective, and ultimately you're going to be using more energy than if you use the positions like I just showed you. So next is just to learn the picking pattern between the two bottom strings, the D and the A string, and then you can do this just by incorporating just the 10th fret in, just so you're not playing all open. And all of the bass notes, all these notes on that D string, that low D string, are going to be palm muted, but none of the ones on the A string, they're all going to be open. They're not going to be palm muted. So step number 2 is just to get familiar with that picking pattern between the 2 strings. Step number 3 is just to incorporate that entire melody on the A string into that picking pattern. So you're almost playing the entire riff at this point. But I would suggest that you practice it a bit slower than the tempo, which is 2/12. So step number 4, which is the last step before you can play the entire riff all the way through, is just to practice the octave tail. So octaves are basically just the same note played in different octaves. So this note here, those are the 2 same notes, and I'm just muting the string in between. So I'm playing on the 5th string and the 3rd string, and then that 4th string I'm muting with my 1st finger, or your whatever finger you want to mute it with. And then it just goes from the 8th to the 7th to the 5th, and then jumps way over to the 12th, 10, and then 8. So step number 4 is just to practice that octave tail a few times with a rest in between. So it's beneficial for you to practice all of these ideas that I'm explaining to you, all the steps, and to understand each part of these riffs before you put them together, because then you're going to be able to play them much cleaner than if you tried to learn the entire riff all the way through. It's almost like a basketball player, say like Michael Jordan. I don't really know very many basketball players, so I'm just going to say Michael Jordan. Let's just say that he wanted to do like a fake out 360 slam dunk, if that's a thing. I don't know. Let's just say it is a thing. And that's what he wanted to do. He wanted to learn how to do that. He's not going to just go into a game or go into a scrimmage or even just practice that one like gnarly trick all the way, like from start to finish, and try to learn it. He's going to practice the fake out, and then he's going to practice the 360, and then he's going to practice the slam dunk, and then he's going to put it all together, and then he's going to take it to a game and slam dunk it in front of somebody's face. So that's kind of the same idea as far as like learning riffs. If you break them down into these little sections and then learn these sections like I'm showing you, then once you put it together, it's going to be a lot easier to learn. It's going to be a lot quicker to learn, and it's going to sound a lot better when you finally get it all together. So the last riff that we're going to talk about today is from the song Rose of Sharon by Killswitch Engaged. And it is an alternate picking between the bottom 2 strings. And like we talked about, alternate picking is an essential technique that you should definitely learn. So this riff is in drop C, and it sounds like this. Alternate picking takes a bit of time to learn. So if you're not fluent with alternate picking, something that you could do that's going to help out tremendously and make it very easy, a lot quicker for you to learn alternate picking, is practice just up pick, because you practice down picking all the time. You know, even if you are alternate picking, you're down picking. If you're down picking, you're down picking. You're galloping, you're down picking. You're string skipping, you're down picking. Down picking is kind of the go-to picking style for most people. So when you first pick up the guitar, you have to do something, and that's generally going to be just down pick some notes or down pick and strum. You know, a lot of people don't incorporate that up pick until they get a little bit better, and then they understand. I know for me, like when I was first learning, I didn't even think about alternate picking until my first guitar teacher had me down pick or alternate pick a pentatonic scale. Step 1 is going to be just to learn the 3-note melody, which we're basically just going to be switching between the 2 bottom strings and playing this melody in between. So it's just 5, 7, 8. It's just the classic metalcore 5, 7, 8 riff. So there's sometimes when the way that I play it, sometimes I'll slide my second finger over, and sometimes I'll play it with my pinky. So I'll explain why here once we get kind of more into the riff, and you can decide if that's the way that you want to learn it or not. But it basically just practice this little 3-note melody until you get it consistent. And you're going to do that 7 times before the tail lick, which we'll get into here in a sec. So just step 1 is just to practice that and learn that little 5, 7, 8 melody. So now just add just open low notes in. So just the bass notes, but just open. We're going to fret some of these here in a second. And ultimately, the riff, you're going to fret on the 8th fret and then the 5th fret on some of them, but for now, just play them open. And again, 7 times through until we hit that tail. Step number 3 is going to be to just add in the 8 and the 5 bass notes. So, and I slide those ones that are open, and the reason why I do that is because now I need to hit this, go right to that 8th fret on that low string. And if I'm using my pinky, I use my pinky for that, and if I'm using my pinky here, then I have to jump up real quick from the pinky, and it gets kind of sloppy, so I slide that over, and then I can reach over with my pinky. And you just do that on the 8th fret 1 time, and you want to fret that note for every single time. So it's kind of difficult. The way that I play it is I take my pinky off like right after I play that last one, and then I hit that 8th fret on the A string, and then right after that you play it off the 8th fret, you go over to the 5th fret and basically do the same thing, and then go back, and it's just 2 open cycles again, and then back to the 8th fret. And then it goes into the tail lick after that, which is going to be step number 4. So step number 3 is just to add in those fretted 8th fret and the 5th fret notes on the bass notes. So the tail lick is this, and it's basically does that 2 times, and it's 7, 8 on the 5th string, and then on the 4th string is 10. So just practice that a few times with a rest between and get that down. And I alternate pick that, so I go down, up, down, but you might like going down, 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 up, or down, down, down. It's really up to you on how you want to play that, but this is kind of one of those situations to where there's kind of multiple ways that make sense to play it, or you can even start with the up pick and then go up, down, and then down again. Those are the 3 riffs that I had to show you. Pretty awesome riffs. I think overall that's going to be an awesome like right hand routine. If you learn these 3 riffs and you take these steps that I showed you to learn these riffs, your right hand is going to be so much more developed than most guitarists that neglect to focus on their right hand in the beginning. If you guys want to access the tabs and the playthrough videos of all these exercises and the riffs from this video, the link is below. If you want 20 years of metal guitar experience taught to you over a 6-week program, then I also have my Simplistic Riff Mastery full program linked below.